Good evening, Laura J. here on the 31st day of March before the April Writing Times 3 challenge. And what we're going to be doing through the month of April is really getting our own houses in order. Quite literally, and as you can see, I've got some paperwork behind me because I'm in process of publishing the findings over the last 2.5 years of R&D, research and development of a cultural training curriculum that has care at the core. And so, what I believe we need to do is really get back to what Socrates was speaking to as his theory that there are only two things in existence: what is real and what is unreal. So, if that is the case, and he was seen to be the founder of Western philosophy because the Great Schism that caused a split between the Julian calendar followers with the Orthodox religion that stemmed from the same branch as what the Western side that followed the Gregorian calendar, as well as the rest of the civil world, for it became the civil standard. And if we don't understand what it means to be civil, well, then we might be too light at the polls to actually have our whole selves made known to be present. I would say registered, except for that means that we've already surrendered ourselves to the souverain that has the true queen at the helm of the ship of trust that we didn't realize we must claim the right to be in the properia persona position of a man of capacity, of competence, one who is able to stand independently, able to advocate for and speak for our own selves without needing an agent to do it for us, who is at a lower level, though can make themselves seem to be higher when we are looking to the one to hire in order to save us from having to give the account ourselves, for we feel incompetent, which is why we then get deemed and relegated into alieni juris, where a lien can be put against I, who doesn't get to tell my own story anymore since I gave you permission to do it for me theoretically in that situation, which is precisely what's happening within the trust. For there is an interlocking trust system between the living estate, the decedent estate, and then the beneficiary's estate, which is also the legal person, statute person, substitute person, the exchequer, the one who checks the spot to say, I will not be at the center point of the X, you see, because I agree to be relegated to the Z position of one who goes through the first and second to get to third position, thinking we're already almost home, except for where all leads, where all roads lead to Rome. We have to see the Holy See was the sea we didn't see. We were already sailing on when we were deemed to be merchant vessels. And this is why O Economicus, written by Xenophon, who was a Greek military commander of his time at the time when the the Roman Republic was transitioning to an empire, and people were looking to find an empire to put down rules that then could be told and said that we were all playing under them, which is what jurisdiction and jurisdictional claims is all about. And we do it in the name of a souverain because that means that we've allowed another crown to go over top of the corona, which is the expanded coronal chakra that extends from our crown when we are willing to bring down the energies of we that we all come from and return to and only feel separate from in the meantime when we're having our individuated experience of being part of the whole, experiencing itself, interacting as us with one another who are also from that same source too. It's really intense and crazy, and we don't understand all of the maybes until, baby, we do. There's a few rhymes, which actually take us to the Babylonian times, where we will babble on for a long time if we don't realize the need to actually claim the right to be the principal in our own story, the first person, the author that reclaims authority over our story, our life, over our business. Our lives are private, and sometimes they will be displayed in the public, but played as part of the dis. Because when we display what we have played, well, then the world gets the gist. And we are left as the jester, the joker, the fool who embarks on a journey inward if we are not made to be wards in another man's war, carrying arms in our hands full of weapons where we are pawns in another man's war, weapons, the Ponzi scheme where we are relegated to the Z instead of remaining at the X that marks the spot, where the exchequer is able to say what is and what is not part of the allotments issued by the souverain that dominated claimed domain, and then said that they had dominion over that dominated territory, that they were the highest authority in that domain, and then must be consulted if it was agreed to be okay or nay, not okay at all. The March writing challenge had no one sign up. So I decided to just go through it myself. And boy, have I ever been challenged and grown through this month. It is the end of a doozy, to say the least. But what I don't want you to confuse this story with is any form of regret that I would have for having had to experience those lower emotional parts of myself that emerged in the month where I was doing the deep diving into my inner realms to find I had less mature aspects of myself at the helm in some instances for reasons that my subconscious could speak to, as well as what my conscious mind could, or better, because it recorded all of it and the conscious mind only remembers some of it. And yet we will be deemed to be the sum, the SUM of our parts. And that is because it is about the parts we play in the lives of others that we will be defined. Because in my story, you have a role, maybe a few. And with that, if someone doesn't know you, but they know me, they'll know you through me. And so it's important that you are able to speak for yourself within my story, I believe, which is why I've been and continue to gather the characters that are ready and willing and able to tell our own story. It's so exciting to actually be able to say that in the documentary I've been speaking to for a few years now about how we did it, we're literally calling the shots, the scenes where we want to be seen doing things that we want people to come and bring their cameras, their phones to be able to take pictures of us doing the thing while we are the ones in the picture. And then we'll share those images with others who will be able to see us doing the thing that we wanted to have seen done. And then we say we are the ones we've been waiting for. And we make stories about Rose War, for instance, who comes onto the call as the first of all, who joined in because she has much to bring to the table. Rose, it's awesome to have you here. And it seems no one knows that this call is happening outside of the messages I've put out without the proper promotion or marketing of the fact this call was happening. So I see that you are not showing your face and you're muted. So I'm taking it that you're in a space where you're not able to contribute but wanted to tune in and often leave comments. But it's awesome that you are here, Rose. How are you?
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining in. As you can see, you are the first and only who has tonight because I haven't been promoting it properly. And I've been focused on really what's going to happen next month in the RightingX3 challenge, where we're going to be creating a special practice. And I've been trying to figure out how to offer it in a way that honors myself for holding this space and then also everyone else that chooses to show up to the experience too. And so, what I've decided is to actually launch an inner circle with Thursday morning calls where we can come together and people from other parts of the world are able to tune in as well because of the earlier time. And then we can really start unifying because Christian from Romania, that's in the Peaceful Inner Warriors United Assembly group, is a lot to share. And there's a lot where the AI technology is concerned as well that really needs to be brought to the fore as we get back to being real and recognize the unreal realm of what is virtual and corporate are ultimately guises over top of our true nature that we've been confusing and fusing with our sense of identity, as you know. And so it's going to be a matter of separating the wheat from the chaff. It's about finding where there's layers that need not cover what is an original any longer.
It's understandable. With everything kind of going on, we're at a pivotal point though with AI. It's at a turning point where technology is going to be working more for us instead of more in an entertainment purpose. So, but as we're seeing things crumble, which is what you're talking about in the public and private, a lot of things are being brought out into the public, that which would remain private and is being rooted out through AI. However, a lot of the stuff being brought into the public happens to be the stuff that is bringing things out, paradigm thoughts out. So, where you draw the line is the corporation of the individual, which a lot of the government corporations view people as. That's something to bring into light as well.
Yeah, our statuses define us. And I was just saying to Jordy 2 days ago when he said that there is a projection for a depopulation to 80% of what we've currently got within a very short time frame. And I said to him, the plausibility or potentiality for that to happen actually doesn't require the elimination of those people's lives, except for the conversion of their identities with a status that makes it so no longer are they human, but now transhuman or something of that nature.
I think it would bring, so if we're talking about AI in that section, it's the transition between the old paradigm puts you in survival mode. It keeps you in the lower root-based chakra. So you're seeing people currently kind of existing there. And with AI taking hold of the things that would be putting us in survival, if you, again, we have robots, we have all kinds of robotics out there right now. But if you have AI taking care of those survival jobs or debts and whatnot, then you free the person up to actually be able to be expressive. So that's the shift. But how many people are willing to sit and look at themselves for that, right? You're talking about a challenge. So the challenge is in looking how to come out of survival mode, a trauma that's been replayed out for thousands and thousands of years. And you were talking about specific laws, which have been, I was just into Mosaic laws again for thousands and thousands and thousands of years to keep people in a way, slaves in a way, debt slaves, slaves to self. And so it's shifting what would be our identity and what we integrated in the code of our identity from these systems that are broken into something that's new. And I get that a lot of people they're very trepidatious about stepping their foot or putting their toe into that pool of something new. It's out of their comfort zone.
Yeah, well, it's going to, all change is uncomfortable when we're in the process of it. Like the caterpillar is able to tell the butterfly after the caterpillar has died. So it doesn't actually work that way. The caterpillar doesn't get to meet the butterfly, it becomes it.
Mm-hmm. Then in the process of becoming, again, that's where you're getting a lot of we see a lot of the fear coming in. So the misinformation, the disinformation. How do you clarify for other people so that they're able to take those steps? Some people may take leaps. Some people are already there, um, into what is coming into fruition, what is actually flowering right now, what is the bud that is growing.
Yeah, into fruition is absolutely the perfect way to say it, because then that also brings in the use of fruct, that is the way that we have been getting fruct, where
Mm-hmm.
the fruits of our thoughts, feelings, beliefs, all of that which we have put our team into, that being our time, energy, effort, attention, and money as life force energetic resources that are deployed in the play of our lives, that we ultimately have to become more mindful of how we're using those energetic resources. And that's where the special practice comes in that we're going to be bringing to the fore in April. So that's the sacred sojourn of the soul, the hero's journey from a soulful perspective that I wrote about in my first book, Fully Committed, the sacred sojourn of now, which is the newly ordered world, or the new orderly world, as to the acronym for now, that we get to choose which one we use based on what we're willing to do. If it's the newly ordered world, we've already done it and we're living in a future timeline in the present. Whereas if it's the new orderly world, well, then we've just brought it into order, and that's great too, because that's progress. Then you've also got the physicality element, or the physical movement component. There's the emotional movement component. And then you also have consciousness mixed with conscience, which is the driving force behind our choices, that are intuitively driven if we are truly aligned in the now. And that's when then we can lead ourselves before we try to take others where we haven't been to. So if we haven't walked it, we don't get to talk about the experience, that we can only theorize until we've actually lived it. And then the devil can't come in to what lived, because we were there. We know for sure. We saw it with our own eye, was there for that.
I agree. um,
Absolutely. I
I
have
agree
your
with.
I have your painting behind me, the soul portrait that you did, which is actually very relevant to the times that we're in. And I love that you're the one who chose to come and invest your team to be here tonight. So it seems appropriate to actually share that this is where we really are. Rose,
Oh
explain
yeah.
how you came to this, if you would, please.
Um, okay, so not knowing much about your past, I should say, um, through your music, because everything is an emotion, an energy motion. So it's one of the strongest things. But it's an expansion, as you're talking about alignment. So what happens is what's ascension is basically the expansion of the energy or emotions, the desires, the thoughts, the love, all of that that goes out, and an emanation of consciousness around you. you're able to tap in and entangle with a future potential of yourself going towards a goal, basically being the fisherman and the bobber at the end at the same time. And you're able to talk to the bobber to see where you're going to reel the line in. So as you had given me music, a playlist, this is the visual that comes through from your library. So the potential timelines that are also rippled out from your past. Um, think of it as tree rings. So a lot of the emotions we have, a lot of the linear stuff that we live through goes out through our past or into alternate timelines in which we're able to tap in and bring those things that work here. So a lot of it, the inner child you, I kept seeing that part that is you on the corner there, on which would be on the left corner if we're looking at it. That is kind of the music part, the voice part. A lot of the blue that came in because that's the throat chakra. You also have potential blooming. We have this new earth coming in and kind of cleaning away the old, or clearing it away, but also the way that we write, the way that we understand language, that pen that's in there. Um, it's funny with even the Emerald City because some of that is also synonymous with Avalon or even Atlantis, which are locations but also thought concepts as well. And some of it, a lot of it has to do with what you're doing legally is you're getting and clarifying what is legal, what has been miscommunicated because it's been done under other definitions that were deceptive. So a lot of that came in through your music, and somebody could give the same music playlist, but it would be a different painting, I entirely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Very grateful. This is an absolute masterpiece, and I'm grateful to be able to display it in my space and use it in relation to Wizard of Oz, which you referred to as Avalon and Atlantis.
yeah, both of them are synonymous. They're basically the same. It's the same story kind of being told. This moving place, this place of it's made of crystal. It's an order, but yet it's very misty, like right. Avalon kept disappearing, so it would reappear and disappear in the mist. Um, even the Emerald City, Emerald being of the heart, the land of Oz. You have O and Z, so you have they're both the ending, the Omega ending, right? But you're also talking about where it is in balance in your heart, right? Your heart space. That's the green, that's the emerald heart chakra. So all of those things are related in a way. The heart of Atlantis, the heart of Avalon, the heart of, Emerald City, and the journey, the same thing with The Wizard of Oz is the soul's journey. It's been parodied in every book story for a long time. The soul's journey from the fool to kind of going back to the fool. You go to the fool all the way to the end of the fool, but it's the fool who is wisdom starting this new thing over, this new consciousness into the 3D space over.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting because all of our stories is actually by Beth Maiden. And I just bought this, who has the Little Red Tarot guidebook. And basically, she's telling the story of how she really got into tarot and started her own journal that became an online blog. That is how she then defined all of the cards that are in the tarot and the stories and how we tell stories through the tarot. And Rose, you actually created your own tarot deck, which I have in my office space, that is still a work in progress right now. But you created this oracle deck that is not a tarot deck, but is an oracle deck. Why the difference, and what would you like to see done with the deck now that it's available for people to purchase?
Um, so the difference is that we've seen that the tarot deck be redone over and over in many different ways. And it's the major arcana is your soul's journey, and then you get the quartz system, the minor arcana, which is kind of it's also your emotions, it's also your elements, right? These are things, the concepts, intellect, they're related to parts of your body. So the oracle deck is a way that you can complement any other deck that you're using, but it also teaches the relative nature between colors, frequency, sound, the zodiacs. And I say zodiacs because there's more. There's Chinese zodiac. There's it's not quite in there, but they're in there with the chakras, with herbs, with food, with healing, with numbers, numerology, how it's related so that when you're using those cards, how are you relating? How are your common threads related to that deck? And my tree is the concept of unconditional love. So you're looking at something that is eternal anyway. It's unconditional friendliness. It's a practice for that. So you're using an oracle deck to help tap into your own intuition. Um, I'd actually like to see that in some of the shops around here, some of the metaphysical shops. But for people to, again, explore it. Don't be afraid of the numbers that you see, the synchronicities. People always get 1111 or 999 or these repeating numbers. And how do they relate to colors? How do those colors are frequencies? You're seeing them, they're photons, it's light. How is that relating to an herb that you may, or flower that you see? So all of those things are relative. So when you start to appreciate the things around you, then you have this sense of being curious to want to explore your world. So I would love people to kind of just play with them, explore with them, see how it relates to them, tell their stories through them.
Right. Yay. Well, maybe there is an opportunity for you to start hosting more regular calls using them so then people are able to experience the cards and the connections and the stories, and then also get time with the creator of the deck. And you and Claudio can come together, which the interview or conversation that we three had has not yet been shared because I have had an incredible amount of information coming at me and out. And it's also a very important conversation that needs to have attention given to it. And so I didn't just rush to put it out for the sake of putting it out in a timely fashion to when the conversation was had, because immediately after that call, I actually got on with Luna Keller, who is one of the contributing artists, which I think her song Prophecy was actually on the playlist that helped inspire the soul painting that we were talking about that you did for me. And
I believe so.
yeah,
Yeah,
Luna actually has a birthday tomorrow on April 1st, which is the first day of the Writing Times 3 challenge,
that would be awesome. It'd be
right?
awesome to talk all together. And like you said, Claudio has a lot of really good, the way that using the different calendars to relate the numbers, same thing, the suits, and even the pictographs, because hieroglyphics, pictographs are much different than anything written in words, which, like we were talking about law, I've been sitting here because there's a lot of older laws that we were talking about other than Justinian, but there's ones that come in precursor to that kind of contributed to it, and some of them are written in cuneiform, some of them are written in pictorials. They're different interpretations, and how does that society evolve for them? So all of it has relevance, and it's a big thing to unfold. So I think it was good that you put out just a little, get them little hints, because it's something that is in divine timing. I know that for certain.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the fact that we're having this conversation and you're the one that came on, and now the realization as to the April writing challenge and a paradigm around the martyr that is really here to be addressed at this time, which we've had many conversations over the last couple of years that we've known one another about the martyr, and the fact that we've both stepped into that or embodied that archetype to a degree in our own lives in the ways that we have served others to our own detriment or depletion at times. And I think the flip that is happening now is where we are really learning how to have a more balanced, reciprocal give and take flow to receptivity and gifting, and really standing in our gifts as each of us do in our own way with the art or craft that we have used our lives to help us master to the level that we have, to really stand in our power in a way where the martyr archetype is no longer about being willing to die for something, but instead to know what we are willing to live for, and then to live for ourselves and all that which we will leave behind us after we are no longer here to breathe and be our true and full selves as we have been known as us, which, going back to the AI conversation, replicas of who we present ourselves to be, like the character Laura J, or even Rose War, when Rose Marie is how others would know you to be, with the last name that is not War but has it in it. And when we start to really go back to these characters that we've created with these online personas in privately owned public private platforms, like all of the social media accounts that we use to interface with services that we want or communities we want access to, then we start to recognize that there is only one us. And if we don't know how to actually reserve our rights to not be implied to be the likeness and image of an account that has our name, then we're going to be in trouble, which is exactly why I'm offering this writing challenge and inviting the coolest characters in the game of life that I know, which is why I'm so grateful that you chose to show up tonight, Rose.
Thank you. And it's funny you're talking about, again, like the different versions of us. It's about acceptance of them. It's about integration, again, the unconditional love of even those versions of us as we've gone through them.
Mhm.
Because interestingly enough, and normally I wouldn't have put it, we're being recorded, and interestingly enough, in the last week, I've had what somebody has called been doxxed. So basically, some people were cyberbullying to take some past stuff, pictures, or just parts of it in a way to kind of like exploit or blackmail. And there's nothing there because I just laughed. I go, all right, I accept all of that. It's
Yeah.
there. I put it out there. It's in there. The pictures are in there, the transformations, the different types. And I go, so there's nothing to gain from them other than those were experiences we went through. Those were things that were growth periods, and to celebrate each one of them as a, everything that we've learned in through that story, in our entire story. And it's still going. As you said, we're going down this path. Um, there is collectives behind us that are following, and in their own path it'll be completely different, but we have that relation. You can relate to people, that common thread, as Bucky would say, a common thread on a tapestry, right? So it's all being woven together. And when people look at the commonalities and the acceptance part of it, is okay, I accept this part of me, this part of you, this part of anybody else coming in, it makes it a lot easier for us to interact with each other instead of looking at the opposition of those things,
Yeah.
because those would be opposition within ourselves. So this is how you get to unity consciousness. You
Mhm.
go through these paths, you go through that, the major arcana, the hero's journey. You go through each one, the tower moments, the hanged man, the martyr, right? To understand that the hanged man was there because we learned something. Even the hanged man is in the deck, in the tarot deck, is actually Odin, who lost his eye and gained the idea of writing, of understanding runes, to open his third eye so he could free himself from that post, that which he was hung from, right? It was a sacrifice that was made that was more of the ego, like again, the survival mode, which we're coming out of. We're going into this, some people have called golden era, golden age. We're transitioning from one point of the caterpillar into the butterfly. You're going through this cocoon stage, all these sticky pieces. Does the butterfly sit there and blame the caterpillar and the cocoon
Right.
that was built? So all these things are coming into fruition as we were talking about. Um, and it is through converging with people. How do you interact with people? How do we interact with people? How do we interact with ourselves? So the more layers that we can shed, the more we accept ourselves, the more that we notice all these differences that of our own journey, then you can encompass the whole. You can see it as the whole then, instead of just all the little tiny parts. It's a beautiful process, and thank you.
Thank you. You always have so much value to contribute, Rose. And I am so looking forward to connecting with your friend Bucky as well, as we haven't yet had a chance to do that. But what I know for sure is that the power of the month to come is in the connections that we make with one another, where people of value connect people of value so that our circle of influence and connection expands and we all get to benefit because we are all part of that expansion and we get to watch as connections take place in our midst that then grow because energy is invested into the relationships that come as opportunities to get to know one another.
I agree. We won't know one another and to know ourselves again, because we're in a way, we're all walking each other home. Where home is in, when you capitalize the OM, into balance. We're walking each other into balance, basically.
Um, yes, exactly. Yes. So that is what the invitation for next month is really about with the writing challenge. It's about rites of passage that we go through as we maneuver the hero's journey from a soulful perspective. It is about writing that which we notice with our eyes is not right. And that's a right with an RIGHT for what needs to be made right in writing so that then we have rights to stand on because we wrote them, right?
Then it becomes a writ.
Well, a writ is actually by an official within the system. So essentially, the legal fiction where legal comes from Julius Caesar having already dominated over Gaul before then he stepped over or trespassed into the Pope's territory by crossing Rubicon River after Pompey, who was one of the triumvirates after Crassus died, or Crassus. You would know this story better than I, but I've been piecing it together and I only just share that when Caesar crossed over the Rubicon River, it was declaring war against the Pope. And what Caesar said was the die is cast because we were all killed or culled in the process of him crossing over and then overtaking that which was dominated by another until Caesar then claimed it and then a rebranding took place. And he made himself the highest position or the king priest, which is what the Melchizedek priesthood and its descendants were actually reflective of, if you know more about that.
A little bit of it, what you're speaking of, because I was diving into, again, a lot of and I mentioned it before, the Code of Hammurabi, which there's precursors of, which sometimes doesn't seem like it has a connection to the Roman law, this Justinian Code, or any of the ones that we're going through, but the Mosaic laws are found on them. And they also do believe in the priest king, or being God is Pharaoh, Pharaoh is God, right? That they're there to represent all sites of belief and religious faction as well as states, as states and states. So you're talking about people. Um, it's a lot. That is a lot to unpack, though, what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Well, when you talk about Mosaic law, and
Yeah.
then people don't recognize that Mosaic law stems from Moses, that's when that we understand that given Moses is a character within the Bible, he actually stems from Noah because the curse of Noah was the bare trust or the naked trust that then gets covered with les vêtements of clothes over top of Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp's privates because Dr. and Mrs. are the titles the tramps take on to move away from the titles or to move away from being real in order to be identified as the status or this title. And then we trade status between one another, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes. And actually, when you go back, that's what I'm saying. So if you go back, not to, there's well more previously to the Code of Hammurabi, Hammurabi being a Sumerian king, because Noah, the story of Noah came from the Epic of Gilgamesh, and actually there's the Urdu Genesis, which is where Genesis is. A lot of it's been picked over and put into the Old Testament, where you get Noah. There's another name for Noah, and Noah being of a lineage that came, there's pre-flood and then there's after the flood. And so the same laws that they were exhibiting pre-flood, the same thing about like an eye for an eye mentality, all of those laws, especially about people, about owning land, about how it would look as taxes, all of that was even before Noah. And so it just, what happens when you land somewhere new? You take what you've already known to recreate it so you can create an order. Regardless if we try to do it with the best of intent to change it, it still carries over. So you see that in Moses' laws, you see that in Mosaic laws, you see it in Noah's laws, you see it in the precursors. There's at least, I think the oldest written ones is actually a lineage of all the Sumerian kings who actually had a lot of written laws that contributed to this.
So it goes back to Genesis as you're speaking about,
Yeah.
and the fact that the Bible and the New Testament and Old Testament was about testing a mental body. So one was pre-flood, the other was after flood. So that was actually a jurisdictional overlay of waters onto the lands, which is why laws of the land pre-flood were like the Mosaic Hammurabi codes compared to post-flood was Noah and the tablets of Moses that were coined in the Bible that have allegory or was alluded to having come from before then too. So this is just the tying together of stories that actually are connected by the flooding of jurisdictions over lands that then had two clans at their helm that used vassals as holders of title to make that separation between what is real and unreal to have blurred lines.
Yes, and actually, when you go back to look through it, there were originally two different kings in Sumeria that, again, the first ones where the lineage would have been down one to Noah, one to they even Abraham. All of it went through what you're talking biblical time. But you get to the tablets that you're talking about, Ten Commandments, which actually started to roughly take the Roman 12 tablets, which it turned into the Bill of Rights in the United States, which again, so you're looking at it being reflected down, the fractals of it, as again, all of this is the trust that these kings ruled over this land, but those lands are no longer there. And even you go through the Sumerian king stuff, it says, well, this kingdom ended, so they moved to this one, and this kingdom ended, so they moved to this one, and they give locations for it, but they don't actually give you what is there other than God told them to, or whatever God or monotheistic God, what gave them the right to own that piece of land? Who actually owns it? Really?
Whoever dominates the domain that is claimed, because whoever reigns the page, because of the four corners being owned and in cahoots, all centering onto the same point, if those four corners are all focused on this central point here, there's a lot of power being focused there compared to when someone is using a different page to tell the truth, then it's not going to be focused on that polar bear at all. It'll be somewhere entirely different. And that's the power of focus. That's the power of the mastermind, the power of concentrated effort or energy onto a shared focal point, which is the reason that we really need to acknowledge the past for how it has brought us to the present moment, and yet get equally intentional and even more so in creating a future that is going to serve us, that doesn't require us marinate or regurgitate or try to find all of these missing links in stories that no one thought we would actually be able to tie together, except for each of us having pursued a lot of rabbit holes with brilliant minds to be able to find the links and then to find each other and then to clink it all together. That's what we're doing in the month to come. So there is an inner circle that we'll be launching Thursday mornings where we're going to be going deeper. And I am inviting people who are really wanting to take their special practice program development seriously and have support as we go through the process, because this whole devotion to others at the expense of ourselves means we're drained and can't afford to be bringing that pattern into the world that we're co-creating together. Because as much as sacrificing ourselves for the greater good seemed like a great idea and very noble, there's no bull about it that there won't be a seal on the information that we share if we do it honestly without the officials. And we actually make it out of here more whole because we stopped playing into the patterns that old roles required us to. So I would love to have you part of that, Rose, and to everyone who is listening to the replay now that it's going to be available. I'm just wanting to really invite people to partake in the April challenge and to know that it's not about what we know in this life, but about who we know and who wants to know us, and then coming together with others who want to know people of value and are willing to get past some of the nuances and quirks that all of us who have a little bit of genius in us seem to display. And certainly egos can get in the way. And so figuring out how to really grow up ourselves within a public sphere that may seem private until it's convenient to bring forward that which was shared in confidence, when then we lose confidence in the one we shared it with privately because they bring it into the public and try to make us the fall guy to feel bad for what was brought forward that we fully acknowledge, because there's nothing to hide, like what Rose spoke to earlier.
I look forward to actually, again, I would look forward to seeing what comes in April. I do know there is, again, there's that pivotal time where it's turning. I've seen that. There's a lot turning, there's a lot of people coming together, converging. Um, exactly, unity consciousness, it's all coming about. So I look forward to that. I look forward to more people coming in. They
Yeah,
will be here. It's divinely timed. So
it fully is. Yep. Couldn't imagine having a better first call to really close off a crazy month, a month where I did the March writing challenge myself in my own life privately so that I could get myself in order, and am still in process because it didn't go as fast as what I thought it should or could or might. But that's because I've got so many ideas written down in all of these places I've been getting in order. And I've been writing those ideas down for years. So naturally, it takes longer to put in proper order than what I might have liked or hoped or wanted. But as you said a few times there, Rose, everything in its divine time. It's all happening exactly as it's meant to.
yep. April showers bring May flowers. You have those waters that are coming in, the tides are turning. You can keep going with the word play. But yes, divinely timing and all the tools that we have that again, the year is a 9 year, 5, 2 + 2, right? 2025. We're coming into a year of completion. So these things that we have in our toolbox are all coming out and going, okay, now I know what this is for. It is for here and here and here. And it makes sense. It's just how is it ordered of operation as we move forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
So
I laugh and I made a big expletive in my own head because it's 6:55 right now.
Here we go.
Amen. Yes. And that's the halfway point between the first of the ace and the 10, which is the complete set to the suit that there's four of. And so there will be more of us, but for now, the power of two is enough to have grew the mastermind that combines our intentions to create something that is even greater and larger than just the two of us focusing on it, for then it becomes its own thing. If we can get enough energy into it for it to then be self-sustaining, which is what an entity is. And while many people are so confused and alarmed with the fictitious nature of the corporate realm generally, that might seem a scary concept for something to, or an idea to be able to then become separate from the ones who gave the idea existence in the first place. But it's no different from the concept, the man, the myth, and the legend, which each operate separate from the man himself.
They do, and yet they're all connected in a way to the now. You're talking about the man, the myth, and the legend. That just brought into mind Da Vinci's the man, the I forget what it's called. You know what I'm talking about? Again, so each dimensional layer that we are in, we're entangled with. How do we want to navigate? We have this now, all times playing out now. You're able to access everything in this now, and then it changes to the next. So we will keep growing on that, expanding on it, expanding outward.
Yeah,
Co-creating together. You do have two, where two or more are gathered, right?
precisely. Yay. Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for showing up tonight. I look forward to hearing comments from those who take your time to review what we have shared, to mine it for how it will benefit you. And please do stick around for the April writing challenge, where we're going to get our own houses in order. Literally, if you wish. I'm working on that for myself. And then on a more figurative level, where the real house that we're talking about is our own lives.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Peace. Thanks.